pass by you and you're just like awkwardly like.
Yeah.
Like someone's kind of far away and you like,
Yeah.
like, yep, and they just like notice that you're like staring.
You're like, I'm sorry, I thought you were someone else.
It's
No,
worse with
seriously.
masks. Oh,
It's so hard with my.
Yes.
So I found
I'm
something
tired of that.
really weird. So if I meet somebody without a mask on for the first time, and then I see them later with a mask, I'll know exactly who it is.
Yes.
But if it's the opposite, where if I meet them for someone with a mask and then I see them without a mask later, I won't recognize them.
Oh, that happened to me. Guys, this is so bad. I don't know if any of you knew Brittany Black while she was working here for like a couple semesters, but she only worked here when we were remote and had masks on. And I don't think I'd ever really like seen her much without her mask. And now she's working in HR, and I went up there to tour for my class, and she's like, "Hey, it's my boss." And like I was like, "Oh my gosh, who is this?" I was like, "Oh, I have to remember who this is. This is so bad." Yes. Or do you ever like, have you ever met somebody with only their mask on and like, I think your brain like fills in the rest of their face for you?
Yeah.
And then I'm tripped out when I see them, they're like full face and I'm like,
That's like all of my trainees. Jill, Maddie,
Oh, because you had training in person, right? You never had it over
Oh,
Zoom.
so weird. This was my trainer.
That's right. Yeah, that was a while ago.
I know.
You trained?
Yeah.
Yeah, I jump in when needed.
I was like, Matt Aiello and Maddie, what's her last name? Maddie something, and then Hannah Lyons.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Maddie Morse.
Maddie Morse, yeah.
Maddie Morse, Hannah Lyons, yeah.
And then there's Lauren Durr and then the other Lauren.
All of them.
No, not Stephen.
I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah.
Wow. We've been here a long time. Why does it change so fast? It feels like it shouldn't. Lauren Durr was actually project manager back in winter semester last year. So bless him. I think Bennett's the only one who's been project manager in training for more than one semester other than Alicia. Sari's gonna break it. She's gonna break the record. Yeah. Yeah, he was a senior lead there for a semester and then took a semester off for his internship and then came back to training. So bless Bennett. I actually shadowed Bennett when I was in training. Isn't that crazy? He really is.
First week of class was better.
Yeah, little boy. They just had a boy.
Yeah.
Apparently her labor was like really fast.
Wow.
Yeah, by the time they got there, it took her like an hour and a half to deliver.
It wasn't my experience.
No, I was in labor for exactly 24 hours with my first. So yeah, got to the hospital at 7, had her at 7 the next day. So
That was your first one.
yeah, the second one was worse. I started having contractions at like 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, and they just wouldn't get regular. And so I went to my doctor and she's like, well, if you're still having active contractions on like Sunday, come in and I'll just start your labor. Yeah, so I was like every 20 or 30 minutes having contractions with my son for like 5 days.
Oh my
Yeah, it's fine.
I was on, speaking of Tammy, I think this has been discontinued, but I was on the party planning committee with.
Oh yes,
We should, okay, now the party.
we should start the PPC
It's
again.
just the training.
It was just like Tammy and like Amanda.
That's what we are.
That's true. Training is officially.
Officially the.
We always called it the party planning committee, but I wanted to call it the committee to plan parties, like in the office.
It was so much like the office I've been seeing. That was how my team.
Bless her. Okay, well, good things. This is all good memories down memory lane. Does anyone know what the curse of knowledge is? No, Sari does. You can't comment.
What did you like?
No, actually, I'll let you explain.
What do you like? No, you think you know your knowledge, the TV, and then like you get an answer and it's updated on the TV.
And that's a very good interpretation. I think that you can actually understand this two ways, in that you can have so much knowledge that you don't continue to learn, I think that can be part of it. The second part of this is essentially the concept that you have so much and you know so much about the job that you forget to jump down to people's level who don't know, or to backtrack a little bit and explain everything. So we're going to talk about, there was a study done about this with 100 people by these scientists. And what they would do is they would tap out a song, a well-known song, essentially with their fingers, right? And then they would ask everyone in the room to identify the song. So they could be tapping out like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star or something like that. And out of 100 people, only 2 people were able to guess or know what song it was that they were tapping out. Alicia is one of those random people. I was teaching one of these trainings and she was like, oh, I know the song. And I was like, Alicia, you're not a very good example. But anyways, the idea behind the study is a lot of the time we think other people should understand what we already know in our minds, right? What the song that we're hearing in our head, but they can't without help understand what it is that we already know. So keeping that in mind, we're going to watch an example of a first day of work. This is really quiet, so I'm going to turn it up. I don't know why these videos are so quiet. Has anyone seen this movie?
Yes. This is a good
Okay. Guys, I've been using this in my training for over a semester, still haven't seen it, but love Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and watch these videos, and what I want you guys to just consider is like, you could put yourself in her shoes and consider if this was your first day of work, right? And this is your training experience.
Not what I asked you. I couldn't have been clearer. There you are, Emily. How many times do I have to scream your name?
Actually, my name is Andrea, but everybody calls me Andy.
I need 10 or 15 skirts from Calvin Klein.
Okay, what kind of skirts do you
Please
use?
bore someone else with your questions. And make sure we have Pier 59 at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And remind Jocelyn I need to see a few of those satchels that Mark is doing in the pony. And then tell Simone I'll take Jackie if Maggie isn't available. Did de Marchelier confirm?
Marshall.
De Marchelier? Did he get him on the phone?
Okay.
And Emily?
Yes.
That's all. It's just the cavalier disregard for clear. Do you have de Marchelier?
Leave it. I have Miranda Priestley calling. I have Patrick. No, she called me in there and she asked me about Pier 59 and there was something about Simone, Frankie, someone else, and she needs skirts, Calvin Klein, and there was something about a pony.
Did she say which skirts?
No.
Did she say what kind?
No,
Color?
I tried to ask her.
You never ask Miranda anything, right? I will deal with all of this, and you will go to Calvin Klein.
Me?
Oh, I'm sorry, just some prior commitment. Some hideous skirt convention you have to go to.
Okay, obviously a horrible first day of work. But I just want to talk for a second. What was wrong with that first day? Or how would you guys have felt had you been in her shoes?
Nobody gave her any guidance.
Yes.
She had no idea what she was doing. She was just running around.
No direction. Yeah. And there's a lot of expectation, right? Anything else?
I think like you can be successful as an organization when the leadership doesn't even take the time to like know your name. Like she told her name and she's like didn't care at all. So I think that's like a big issue. Like regardless of like the level of expectation and what you expect people to know, or just figure out from what you're telling them. You can at least take the time to like know who they are. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that lady even did her interview. Like, She was the one that hired her and she didn't know her name. And so it's important. That's definitely an important thing. We're just gonna talk really quickly. How might the curse of knowledge affect our employees or affect our interactions with our employees?
We
Can-
might set like high expectations for our employees without like realizing sometimes that maybe they don't know everything yet. Or I don't know how to word it, but like we can set those high expectations for them, even if they're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I really like that. We forget to come down to their level, right? And it can be hard to expect the same thing out of a brand new employee as what you would expect out of somebody who's worked here for 2 semesters. And I think our employees can fill those expectations. And if they feel like I just don't know how to reach them, then they're going to start feeling kind of hopeless and stressed at work, right? Yeah, I like that. Any other thoughts?
Well, I think that part of maybe a lot of employees when they first start not being able to, do what they're expected is because we're not clear enough. We don't take our time to break things down. We're so used to BSC, the jargon and whatnot, that we just smoke through a lot of explanations and we tend to forget that they're new. So breaking things down, I don't know, the example that comes to mind is right now, King Lamoni, when he was asked if he knew who God was, and he was like, are you talking about the Great Spirit? And the teaching that he received is, yes, like, okay, I'm just going to dumb that down. And yes, it is a great spirit. And I'm going to work from this point on to really build upon that knowledge so that you can achieve whatever you're supposed to do, your potential. And I think that we need to do the same thing, just dumb things down, or not necessarily dumb things down, but like go to the foundations, the basics, explain that to people and build upon that.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that it can be really easy to forget where they're at, and it's important to slow down enough to recognize those teaching moments, right? Or recognize when they might not be understanding or keeping up with what you're saying, and kind of being able to backtrack a little and start from their level. I like that. So what was your guys' training experience like? Does anyone have any interesting, well, Grace might have an interesting training experience, but how was your first few weeks of work after training, and how was that transition from training to your team?
It was stressful.
It was so fast.
Like, did you get your training over Zoom as
It
well?
was remote.
Yeah.
Yeah, so getting your training over Zoom during when the pandemic is barely starting, and then being thrown into the phones. Right? Thrown into the phones.
That's what it felt like, right?
During the summer when everyone's talking about financial aid. And like I've never had experience with financial aid. Like I'm an international student, so I don't know anything about that. I was so stressed out. But they did a good job at reminding us that we had our lead, and that if we had questions, we need to reach out to our lead, and that the most important thing was really to rely on the KB. So that helped a lot.
Yeah. Did everyone here started on phones? Yeah. Okay. That in and of itself is a stressful enough experience. I think for people who are not used to, I think especially probably more so for our generation, that we're just not used to having to not know who's going to reach us on the other end of the phone, and what their questions are going to be, or what kind of personality they're going to have. Like that in and of itself is so scary. And it's trying to go from training where hopefully we've prepared you at least somewhat to the actual experience is just terrifying. I think that's hard to keep, or that's a good thing for you guys to keep in mind as you go throughout this experience as a supervisor, is that transition is terrifying for a lot of people. And maybe it's not a transition to phones, maybe it's a transition to a project-based job, or a ticket-based job, and suddenly they're having to switch from work that's immediately brought to them to having to schedule their time, right? And so it's important to recognize what they're going through and what you as the supervisor can do to help make that transition smoother, to help make them feel more comfortable and supported, and to help them recall and remember the things that they may have already learned in training. But But also for some of us, they may not learn things in training. They may be getting trained on the job. For a lot of our groups that aren't a contacts level. So here's just some ways that I would suggest that you can help your employees during and after training. So during training, make sure you ensure a consistent training experience. And this is what I would come back to for especially like Logan and Sari, where you guys don't have an organized training completely the way that we do. A lot of yours are resource based. I would just make sure that you have some sort of training checklist or some sort of regular thing that you go through with each employee, because a lot of the time when that's the case, they come in, they may not have a consistent training experience from employee to employee, and then it's hard to know what one employee knows and what another employee doesn't. And so creating a checklist or creating something to help you know, like, okay, they've been taught this can be helpful to say, I understand that they should know this much at least. And then with onboarding, it's important for those who have new hires that are going through a regular, consistent onboarding process through our training team to be checking the new hire tickets and talking to the trainers before they get on your team, so that you're aware, okay, this is what they're doing really well with, this is what they're struggling with, this is where the kind of employee I'm getting to help pick up from here, right? Because your trainer's only going to be there for the first few weeks. And then suddenly, as an employee, you have this lead that you hopefully have met at least once, who's going to have to take it from there, and they're going to be a part of the rest of your experience. So it's important to check those tickets and be checking on their progress through training. And then you are going to want to make sure that, like I said, take the time to introduce yourself while they are in training. If you're not the one that's giving the training, make sure you go and at least give them a face and a name to the person that's going to be in charge of them after that. We've seen in training that a lot of people tend to revert back initially to their trainers to ask questions and things because they don't really recognize their leads. And especially at this time in the semester when they're being trained before a heightened busy time, you may not get the time to really get to know your employees during those few weeks. So it's important to take the time now to introduce yourself and say like, hey, I'm here and I'm available if you have questions. And then after training, make sure you reinforce what they learned in training. So when they come and ask you questions, if it's something that they have already learned or should already know, make sure you're teaching them the same concepts that they would have been taught in training, because sometimes a lot of us need those in the moment reminders to make sure that we're retaining it. And that requires that you know the training. So if you're the one giving the training, you might already know the answers better, but if you're not, it's important that you at least are updated enough or ask the trainers enough about what they're learning that you can help reinforce the things that they're learning in training and not undoing what they were taught, right? Second, as part of that, just reinforcing best practices is always a good way to help your employees. Best practices are usually what are taught in training or what are taught at the beginning, and they can really help an employee who's trying to adjust. And then number 3, as we've already talked about, making sure you're finding and looking for the teaching moments and not passing them by. And then this last one is just continued employee development. So some of us may have weekly meetings that we develop our employees in. Some of us may have weekly trainings. We may be participating in the continuing education program, but just making sure that we're continuing to train them beyond their initial training and continue to help them in that mentoring process, making sure they're learning beyond their initial training. All right, that's training. And I just wanted to emphasize the reason we cover training is because it is an important aspect of your job as a supervisor to understand it. Some of you may have to more than others. But we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm excited that some of you procrastinated your homework so that you can read this talk that I added really last minute. Did anyone not read the talk? Okay. Yeah, if you didn't, that's okay. I was looking at my material this morning and I was like, I think this would be good to add to the homework for next time. And so I'm kind of glad that some of you have read it, but we're going to just start with some real life examples with this conversation. We're going to talk about leaders versus managers. as you've already read a little bit from Unibly, who is someone who has been a great leader in your life, and what made them a great leader? Does anyone have an example?
There's so many. I think
I
that's like
know.
the biggest thing. Like I look just.
It's hard to choose from.
But for me, one of the best ones I have is like my deacon's quorum advisor. I don't know what it's called anymore, but like my youth leader, just when we were all like 12-year-old kids, we're all punk kids. And he just cared like a ton about us and was like always there for us, always inviting us to do more and like just to try our best. And so he was kind of a big reason of kind of the path that I ended up on.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually, for my person, was going to share somebody from my young women's group. So a lot of those youth leaders can have a huge impact on us, especially at that time in our lives. Anyone else?
I feel like I talk about my dad a lot, but my dad is one of like the most impactful people in my life. Just because he is so personable. And just like the style of his like teaching is very like one-on-one, and he's like really good at listening, and that's something that I really value and appreciate in leaders, is just when they're willing to listen to you and get on your level. And like I could tell that he could see my potential, but he wasn't going to force it on me. And that was something that was like really important to me growing up. Just yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Dads can be funny that way. And I never wanted to disappoint my dad. He's like the one person. I could disappoint my mom and it would have been fine. I was like, and it wasn't that my dad was like mean or anything about it. It's just like he got that disappointed dad look, you know, and that was like enough. That was so much. So I was going to share an example of my young women's leader, kind of similar experience to Logan, but when I was 13, moved into a ward, and we had kind of moved a lot at that point, and so I wasn't super attached, but she just was so good from the get-go, welcoming us in, and as I was part and stayed part of that ward, she gave us so many leadership opportunities and kind of pushed us to really be enabled in our own youth groups and within our own young women's group to help one another, and that was just a really good lesson to me. But something I guess that made her stand out beyond her initial responsibilities was the fact that even after we had moved from that ward, she like came to my high school graduation, she like came to my wedding and my baby showers and things like that, and she just continually stays in touch. And I know that she does that with every single one of those young women that she had during that time. And I think something that makes her a great leader is that not only when I was in her ward could I tell she cared for me, but beyond that, right? She was someone she had taken into her life and made a part of her life. And that was something that I think made her a great leader and made her stand out to me. Does anyone else have any examples before we move on?
One of my first zone leaders, I went through a lot at the beginning of my mission. I had 4 trainers, 3 areas, and 2 transfers. And I was just overwhelmed. And I reached out to we were on exchanges with the zone leader, and that was towards the end of my training. And so I admired him a lot because of his capacity to, his credibility, his capacity to lead with love and with knowledge and with assurance, the zone, but as well his capacity to relate to people individually, to reach out to us whenever we were feeling it. He was feeling it, and we were needing him the most. And so that led me to actually open up to him about my struggles and how I was overwhelmed and at that point wanted to go home because of all what was going on. And so he literally changed my mission. He is one of the biggest reasons why I decided to stay on the mission and finish it. So I owe him a lot because his example and his leadership and then his follow-up helped me to realize that there's much better things to come. That no matter why I'm overwhelmed, things will get better. So he invited me, he taught me, he committed me, and then he followed up with me, kind of like on the mission with him. I think that the mark of a great leader is this capacity to relate to people, to appeal to them, to remind them who they are, their capacity, and as well understand them and follow up with them, lift them up to the same level of height where they're at. So
Yeah, I really like that. It's can be easy sometimes to ignore those promptings, right? Especially, I can imagine when you're a zone leader and you have so many other things that are a priority, but the fact that he took the time to reach out to you just a moment when he didn't even know for sure if you needed it, that says a lot. I really like that. What is the difference? You guys, a lot of you have already read some of this stuff, so this is great, but what is the difference between a leader and a manager? Any specific things that you guys noted?
One thing that I liked about leaders leaders, they're very like inventive and they're creative, where managers kind of just like stay in the box and they're very safe, but leaders are like willing to take risks and kind of put themselves out there and put their faith in their employees, because they like trust them. When managers are kind of like they want to keep the power and they're more like power hungry. They just want to play it safe and be in charge.
Yeah, I really like that point. And there was a quote, I can't remember the exact quote. Maybe somebody can help me find it. But later on, when he talks about that lady who was talking from the Navy, and she talks about how a ship wasn't made to stay in dock. And managers are the ones who play it safe and they keep their ship in dock, but leaders actually take it out and do what it was meant to do. And I really appreciated that. I don't think we always think of playing it safe as being something that limits us, but definitely in business and as a supervisor, playing it safe and keeping people within a box can definitely limit you. Anything else? That's okay if not. These were some main takeaways I've had as I've been doing some research as I read this and other things. But leaders typically place a lot of trust in their employees, and where managers tend to micromanage and want to be involved in everything because they don't have that trust, right? Leaders tend to care for their employees, and that tends to be a priority for them and something that they think about first, whereas managers tend to care about profit and success first. That's the first thing on their mind. A leader usually views others as equals, and a manager may view others more as a means to an end, someone who can help them get to where they're trying to go. A leader typically, as stated, usually enables creativity and innovation, whereas managers disapprove of good ideas that are not their own because they worry about how it will make them look if it's not coming from them. A leader tends to take smart risks, not overly risky, but risks to a point. Whereas a manager fears other successes for the reason I said above. And then leaders tend to lead with love, with good intention and pure intention, and managers tend to avoid risk. So those are just some of my observations as I've been doing some research. Has anyone ever read this book or heard of Simon Sinek? Okay, he's got some really cool talks about leadership that just that you can find on YouTube if you're ever interested in going and learning a little bit more. But I'm just going to share some principles from this book. He's done a lot of research with the military because he's fascinated with this fact of why people respect their leaders so much to go and put their lives on the line for them, and to follow their orders blindly in some of these intense situations where it really, if it goes badly, like it will go really badly, right? But they place so much trust in their leaders And he's done a lot to kind of research why that is. So we're going to talk about some of those principles, but really quickly, I wanted to share one of his stories, and they've put this story to some weird motivational music, so you'll have to ignore that. But this emotional, this is from a TED Talk that he did, but this is, I think, one of the coolest stories about what it means to be a leader. And I wanted to start with this, so we'll just go.
There's a man by the name of Captain William Swenson, who recently was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions on September 8th, 2009. On that day, a column of American and Afghan troops were making their way through part of Afghanistan to help protect a group of government officials, a group of Afghan government officials who'd be meeting with some local village elders. The column came under ambush and was surrounded on 3 sides. And amongst many other things, Captain Swenson was recognized for running into live fire to rescue the wounded and pull out the dead. One of the people he rescued was a sergeant, and he and a comrade were making their way to a medevac helicopter. And what was remarkable about this day is, by sheer coincidence, one of the medevac medics happened to have a GoPro camera on his helmet and captured the whole scene on camera. It shows Captain Swenson and his comrade bringing this wounded soldier who'd received a gunshot to the neck. They put him in the helicopter, and then you see Captain Swenson bend over and give him a kiss before he turns around to rescue more. I saw this, and I thought to myself, where do people like that come from? What is that? That is some deep, deep emotion when you would want to do that. There's a love there. And I want to know, why is it that I don't have people that I work with like that? In the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. Right? So I asked myself, where do people like this come from? And my initial conclusion was that they're just better people. That's why they're attracted to the military. These better people are attracted to this concept of service. But that's completely wrong. What I learned is that it's the environment. And if you get the environment right, every single one of us has the capacity to do these remarkable things. And more importantly, others have that capacity too. I've had the great honor of getting to meet some of these who we would call heroes, who put themselves and put their lives at risk to save others. And I asked them, why would you do it? Why did you do it? And they all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. It's this deep sense of trust and cooperation. So trust and cooperation are really important here. The problem with concepts of trust and cooperation is that they are feelings. They're not instructions. I can't simply say to you, trust me, and you will. I can't simply instruct 2 people to cooperate, and they will. It's not how it works. It's a feeling. So where does that feeling come from?
If you want to see more, you can watch more, but I just love that story because I think it highlights 2 things. One, leadership versus management. Leadership comes from a genuine place, right? And we're obviously not going to be put in a situation where we're going to have to rescue our employees from death or anything like that. But we can still be genuine and caring in what we do and what we do for our employees. And the second thing is that I loved about that video and the concept of what the military teaches is just trust in everyone no matter what, like trust to the point that you'll put your life on the line for them. And I love that response of why would you risk your life or do that just to go help somebody who's already dead or already wounded? And the answer of, well, I know that they would do the same for me, and not doubting that they would do the same for them. He teaches a lot of lessons that he learned in this book from the military specifically, but these are some initial ones. And number one, good leaders sacrifice their own comfort and curb their own survival instincts for the good of the team. So whether that be running into the line of fire or simply the fact that when people in the military go to eat, their superiors wait for them to get their food before they go to eat. And that's where this title of Leaders Eat Last comes from, is they're not looking to put their own profit or their own priorities ahead of their teams. They're looking to let their teams benefit first, and then they'll come in and benefit from what's left, right? Number two, good leaders create an environment where extreme trust can exist, and we've already looked at an example of that. Number three, leaders create a circle of safety. People will do anything for someone who they feel like will create that safety for them. And we've already talked about how that's one of our number one values, but in his book, he talks about how this goes back to like our very most primal instincts of that, like the leaders of villages or the leaders of families and groups back in the day were made the leader or trusted to be the leader because they know that they would be the first ones to put themselves in the line of fire or to protect the people that are around them, right? They're the people that we trust the most because they provide us with safety. And that's true for some of the best leaders in military history. Is they were, or even if you look at the Book of Mormon, is like Captain Moroni wasn't afraid to put himself in the line of fire and wasn't afraid to be right up there with his men, right? And it's the same with some of the best leaders in history, is they weren't afraid to be right on the front lines, doing what they are asking everyone else to do. And so that comes back to creating that circle of safety. And number four, leaders give time and give energy, the things that they will never get back. And I loved this concept of we can continue to give bonuses or money or prizes for things that people are doing well, but the things that people really value or the things that they recognize are a greater sacrifice than money. And that's your time and your energy, because those are things that you can't earn back. They're not things that you can get back. They're things that once they're spent, right? And people recognize that and they value that in other people. Sorry, before we move on, I guess I just want to ask, oh wow, it's going forward and stuff backwards. I just want to ask if anyone had any thoughts from that video or what was taught or anything they wanted to follow up on. Okay. I wanted to follow up on the mission statement challenge that I gave back on Monday. Did anyone have anything that they discovered from that challenge or wanted to share, or did everyone do it? And you don't have to share in class, that's totally fine, but essentially I just wanted you guys to take some time to think about what it meant to you as a lead or a supervisor.
I think it just gave me an opportunity to reflect on like the 2 semesters there and all that I've learned. So I really appreciated the opportunity to just reflect. So that's really nice.
Yeah. Anyone else? That's okay. Just make sure that you've done it. Like I said, you can't teach it without being genuine. But as we come to a close, and we might even have time to end early, I was worried we weren't going to have enough time. As we come to a close with things, I just wanted to take some time to reflect on what were some things that maybe stood out to you guys in this class, or things that you learned that were new, or that you feel will help you improve in or do well in your new position. Did anyone have anything this week that they just were like, wow, that was definitely something I needed to learn?
I think for me it was just the fact that, like I knew as a team lead, like we have to care so much about our team and helping them to learn and improve and grow in their positions. And I think this training has really helped me to see like several different ways that maybe I can improve so that I can help them improve. And how I think just like reiterating like the importance of like our team members and like for me, like my agents come first. And I need to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm glad that's the perspective that you're taking away. That's definitely the direction we want to go. Guillermo?
To me, was to understand that the impact of the lead goes beyond just work. It is a social, a human impact. It's people that we're helping. It's not just agents. It's not just, like for pay that they're doing that or that we're going to be doing that. It's because we care about them. And I love that because it's really, closely tied to the university's purpose and goal to create this like leaders around the world. And so I don't know. I think that, after this class, I realized, okay, like there's a deeper emphasis into just more than just, answering questions or doing QAs. It's more than just doing things. It's about serving as well. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It definitely, I don't know if anyone's ever been in a job where they hate their supervisor, but those are things, that's definitely a stress that you take home with you, right? When your leader is the one that sets the tone for your work. No matter how hard your work might be, you could love your job being a sanitation specialist and picking up garbage every day if you like have a purpose and if you love who you're working for, right? They definitely have the ability to make the difference between a good job and a bad job. Any other thoughts?
One thing that stood out to me is trusting people. I like a lot of the time I'm like, oh, I don't want to like give this project to someone because I'm like it's not that I don't trust them, but I like don't want to put that burden on them. Like I'm like, I don't know if we can handle that. But I think like for me, just like trusting like, okay, they can do it and like they're not going to hate me for assigning them a project. And I think just like having that trust in like my own abilities as well, because I feel like just in this past week and starting like my job, I haven't felt super confident and I've really been like doubting my abilities. So I think just like trusting both like the people that like are offering their help and then also trusting myself that I can do it is something that I really want to work on.
Yeah, I'm glad we taught trust in day 2. I didn't think about how often it would come up after that, but there's definitely a lot to do with trust in a supervisor position in many ways. And so it's been good to learn about that. Anything else? Logan?
Yeah. Yes. So just for me, I think just the impact that we can have another, just because we're here not to like just like teach people or like give instructions, but we're here to, I guess we taught, we're here to prepare them to become leaders as well. Because we're not gonna be here like, like many years, like graduate, we need to get new team leads, and so it is our responsibility that we have one-on-ones, that we treat them as persons, and that we're not just focusing on like work things, but that we can also get to know them and have that credibility and trust. Because if we do that, then I feel like we'll be able to work as a team and we'll be able to accomplish our goals and work with our mission statement as well.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that as well. I tell you this as somebody who regularly has to make decisions about leaders, but you never want to be in a position where you feel like you're wondering who you're going to put into your soon to be open leadership position, right? And a lot of that boils down to you guys who are in those positions and working with people every day, and you get to interact with them a lot more than I do, but you totally have the capability of developing your replacement and even your whole team just to be ready for those experiences, and whether that's here at the BSC or somebody else, it's important. So, Logan.
Yeah, I really enjoyed being here this whole week, and like everybody said, and a thought that just kept coming back to me pretty much every day was that there's no reason that the BSC can't be the best place to work in Rexford or in campus at least, and that how much that has to do with us, because like we talked about how we're helping to hire the right people, and then we're helping to train those people, and then we're helping them achieve the goals that they have, like career-wise. And so, like, it is up to every person, but I just think that there's kind of a unique position that each one of us will have in making this a place that people know, like, oh, I want to work at the BSC, of anywhere on campus or anywhere in Rexford, where I've heard is good work, and that's somewhere I want to work. So that's something that I think we can achieve. And also that CX is better than everyone else too. That was the other thing.
Just that last little plug. Gotta get it in there. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I definitely think that a lot of it boils down to culture, and you guys are the ones who build that culture. I remember when I first started in this position, I arranged a tour with Melaleuca because I had just heard of so many people who liked working there, and I was like, why? It's just another call center. Like, why would it be any different from working at some other call center? And something that they definitely have is that culture, right? And that feeling of appreciation among their team, and that vision. And that starts with their leadership group, and it starts with you guys on our team, is bringing that culture and that vision to your team members. Because like I said, we're not going to be there to do that every day. Me and the other full-timers, or even the senior leads or coordinators that you're working with, they're not going to be there every day and know your employees the way that you do. And so really, you're the ones that help to keep it all together and help to fill in those gaps and those pieces that we just can't. I just wanted to talk about, if I could really quickly, I've talked about it a little throughout the week, but I started up here my very first day of school on campus. I started my very first job on campus, and I've been working ever since then. And I appreciate BYU Idaho as well as the BSC for the opportunities that it provides for you to grow and develop. And I already told you guys about the fact that it helped me change my major, but it's also taught me so many things about what it is to be a leader, and what good leaders look like, and what it is to interact with people who are good employees and good leaders and can teach you things. I've learned, I say this all the time, maybe it's not a good thing, but I really have learned more in my job experience than I have in my educational experience up here, and they've gone hand in hand to me, or for me. I've learned so much from the people that I get to interact with, as well as from the different challenges I've been posed. And so I just want you guys to consider and really reflect on what it is you want to take away from this opportunity, because there is so much to take away and so much to learn from, and what it is that you want to accomplish before you leave the BSC. And there will be an assignment tonight, kind of asking you to reflect on that. But really just think about it and think about what you have ahead of you. And I just challenge you to really seize your opportunities and the chances and lessons and time that you have ahead of you, because like I said, I've been blessed to learn more and receive more than I feel like anyone that I've gotten to interact with has probably gotten from me. But really, it has just built me as a person and built my education, and given me an opportunity to be a part of people's lives in ways that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten to be a part of their lives. So think about that. And as some, I guess, final thoughts for me as you go forward, I just have a couple things that I would hope for you, other than what you would hope for yourselves, just lessons that I have learned and things that I hope that you gain from this experience as well. And even in future supervisor positions beyond the BSC, but just make sure you take the time to learn from your employees. Like I said, some of the best things I've been taught are from the people that I get to work with, and being able to hear from their experiences and hear their knowledge and be a part of that is just a huge privilege and an opportunity that you get as a supervisor, is to interact with all these people and be able to learn from them. Number 2, I would just challenge you to serve when you can and where you can. I've been given the chance to be put in so many positions, to be a part of so many things, from somebody who, was in an abusive place with somebody in their life and helping them to get out of that situation, to being able to help people who are feeling suicidal, to a lot of other things. And whether it be helping somebody get an internship or helping somebody become a supervisor, you know what I mean? There's just so many opportunities for you to go beyond yourself in this position and really be a part of somebody's life. And I would encourage you to serve when you can and where you can. And we're not asking you to be making dinners for your team members every night and things like that. But I promise you'll find chances in which you can be challenged to serve in a way that's totally beyond your job expectations. And I would just encourage you to take them, because in my experience, they're some of the most rewarding opportunities. And then 3, just continuously seek to become a better supervisor. I don't think anyone is ever in a place, maybe except for Jesus Christ, in which they're a perfect leader, right? I don't think we're ever going to get there. So just as you guys start this journey to being a supervisor and being a leader, just look for those opportunities to learn and continue to develop yourself. Don't be settled with where you're at, but look for where you can grow. And number 4, leave the BSC better than when you came. And that's a challenge for you to leave having learned something from the BSC, but also for you to leave the BSC better for you being here. And I've seen so many people make big, maybe noticeable impacts, but as also smaller impacts that maybe went unnoticed. But you're being put in a unique place here to be able to make a difference and make a change that will leave the BSC better even after you leave, for semesters after you leave. So take that opportunity to seize those moments and know that you left here leaving us better because we had you. And that's my final 2 cents. Thank you guys for being here and for piloting this training with me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be sending you guys a survey for some feedback, so if you'll just watch for that on Monday, that would be helpful. And then, like I said, I just appreciate you guys and your willingness to participate and be here with me this week. That's it. Yeah. Can I actually get a picture with everybody really quick for my slideshow? I hope everyone doesn't mind being part of my presentation.